You're listening to The Observing Eye. Pirate radio for the mind. Coming at you fresh from the computer hell cabin.
Hello, you beautiful lot. It is Friday, the 5th of July, 2004, and you're listening to episode 72 of The Observing Eye, coming at you live from the computer hell cabin. Every week we get psychological, philosophical, and all manner of introspective. I'm David, and this week we are looking at the journey to authentic self-expression. Authenticity. It's a word we hear often. Yet what does it truly mean to be authentic? How do we live authentically in a world that constantly bombards us with messages of who we should be, how we should act, and what we should strive for? Today, we are going to be peeling back the onion and exploring how philosophy, psychology, and even theology can guide us towards a more authentic way of living. So what can we learn from philosophy, psychology, and theology about being authentic? How can we apply these teachings to our daily lives? And why is it so challenging to live authentically in the first place? These are the questions we will be exploring today. For me, authenticity isn't a destination. It's a continuous process of self-discovery and self-affirmation. It requires courage, introspection, and a willingness to embrace both our strengths and our vulnerabilities. Let us get into it then, the journey to authentic self-expression. As we begin our journey into understanding authenticity, it is crucial to first define what we mean by authenticity itself and why it matters so much in our lives. Authenticity at its core is about being true to oneself. It involves aligning our actions, thoughts, and words with our deepest values and beliefs. It's about living a life that feels right and true from the inside out. But let's break this down further. Authenticity isn't a modern buzzword. It has deep roots in philosophy and psychology. The term itself comes from the Greek word, the Greek word autentes, which means author or one who acts independently. This origin gives us a hint about the essence of authenticity. It's about being the author of our own lives, making choices that reflect our true selves rather than simply conforming to external pressures or expectations. So what does it mean to be authentic? Imagine a time when you felt completely yourself, free from the need to impress others or fit into a mold. Perhaps it was a moment when you were engaged in a hobby you love, spending time with close friends who accept you as you are, or speaking out on an issue that you're passionate about. These moments where your actions and words are in harmony with your inner self are glimpses of authenticity. Now, authenticity involves several key components, and they are self-awareness, which is understanding your own thoughts, emotions, and values. Honesty, being truthful with yourself and others. Integrity, consistently aligning your actions with your values. And courage, facing fear and vulnerability to stay true to yourself even when it is challenging. Why then is authenticity so important? Research in psychology shows that living authentically is linked to numerous benefits. People who are more authentic tend to have higher self-esteem, greater life satisfaction, and better overall mental health. They experience lower levels of stress and anxiety because they aren't constantly trying to be someone they're not. Instead, they accept themselves and live in accordance with their true nature. Moreover, when we're authentic, we attract people who appreciate us for who we truly are, not for some facade we are putting up. This leads to more genuine connections and a stronger sense of community and belonging. However, living authentically isn't always easy. There are many obstacles that can get in the way. One major challenge is societal pressure. From a young age, we are bombarded with messages about how we should behave and what we should value, what we should aspire to. These messages come from various sources, be it family, friends, media, and culture at large. These messages can create a very powerful pull towards conformity, which in turn makes it difficult to stay true to ourselves. Another challenge is the fear of rejection. Being authentic often means standing out or going against a grain, which can be intimidating. We worry about being judged, criticized, or excluded by others. And this fear can lead us to hide our true selves and put on a mask to fit in, even when it feels uncomfortable or inauthentic. And then we have the wonderful barrier of self-doubt. Many of us struggle with feelings of inadequacy or imposter syndrome, believing that our true selves aren't good enough. This can make it hard to embrace authenticity, as we might feel that revealing our true selves will lead to rejection or failure. Let's take a moment then to pause and reflect upon our own experiences with authenticity. I would like you to ask yourself the following questions. When do I feel most authentic? What situations or people make it difficult for me to be myself? And are there aspects of my life where I feel I'm not being true to myself? And if so, why? These questions can help us identify areas where we might want to cultivate more authenticity. This is a process of self-discovery and growth, and it is very much okay to take small steps. Understanding authenticity is step one in our journey towards living more genuine, fulfilling lives. It is about being true to ourselves, aligning our actions with our values, and embracing our unique identities. While there are going to be challenges along the way, the benefits of living authentically far outweigh the difficulties. And now, a moment with our sponsor, a statement from our sponsor. Don't go away. A few episodes ago, I mentioned that this podcast would never be sponsored because I felt that having a sponsor would impinge upon my freedom of expression and artistic and creative vision and all that kind of thing. And that has since changed, unfortunately. The podcast is now sponsored. I'm a terrible hypocrite, but the podcast is sponsored by me. So I feel that that's an acceptable sort of grey area in which to exist when it comes to contradicting oneself. Now, when I say I'm sponsoring this podcast, I am sponsoring it with my new book, which is called The Observing Eye, A Guide to Living a More Authentic Life. Now, it's available on paperback and on the Kindle via Amazon, exclusively on Amazon, because there's a Kindle Unlimited deal that I have to adhere to for 3 months. But you can find it on there. You can go and search The Observing Eye on Amazon, and I will put the link in the show notes or description as well, so you can find it there a little bit easier. So the book essentially is a complement to the podcast, and the purpose of the book is to give you some philosophical and psychological tools and ideas to challenge your own perception, your own self-narrative. It's all about storytelling, about how storytelling and narrative shape who we are and our identity, and how we can change that narrative. So it's definitely got a narrative therapy vibe to it, put it that way. And it's out now. It's been out for a few weeks. And if you'd like to go and purchase a copy, that would be wonderful. And I'd really appreciate it. So that's my sponsor window. There we are. My book is out. You can buy it on Amazon. Links in the description, or you can just search The Observing Eye on Amazon as well. Thank you for your time, as always. Much love. And now back to the episode. In our first segment, we defined authenticity and we discussed why it matters. Now it's time to dive deeper into the philosophical perspectives, because you all know I love some philosophy. The philosophical perspectives that have shaped our understanding of what it means to live authentically. Philosophy has long... I've given up on editing those noises out, by the way, because it just takes me too long. You're going to just have to put up with my word salad. Philosophy has long grappled with the question of what it means to live a true and authentic life. Existentialist philosophers, in particular, have offered some very powerful ideas into the nature of authenticity. And we're going to start with one of the most influential and famous existentialists, I would say, and that is Jean-Paul Sartre. So, Michel Sartre was a 20th century French philosopher. and he made significant contributions to existentialist thought. Central to his philosophy is the concept of bad faith, or mauvaise foi. Now, Sartre used this term to describe the phenomena where individuals deceive themselves to avoid facing uncomfortable truths about their existence. According to Sartre, we often conform to societal norms and expectations, adopting roles and identities that are imposed upon us by others. This is a form of self-deception, because it prevents us from acknowledging our true freedom and responsibility. Sartre argued that living in bad faith is inauthentic because we are not being true to ourselves. For example, consider someone who works in a job that they hate because it is prestigious or financially rewarding. They might tell themselves that this is what they should do based on societal standards, even though it doesn't align with their true desires or values. Sartre would say this person is living in bad faith because they are not acknowledging their freedom to choose a different path that would be more authentic. Sartre emphasized that authenticity requires us to embrace our freedom and take responsibility for our choices. This can be daunting because it means we must confront the anxiety that comes with knowing we are the authors of our own lives. There is no external authority dictating who we should be or what we should do. Instead, we must look within and decide for ourselves. Living authentically, according to Sartre, means acknowledging this freedom and making choices that reflect our true selves, rather than conforming to external pressures. It's about being honest with ourselves, about what we truly want and need, and having the courage to pursue it, even if it means facing uncertainty and risk. Another pivotal figure in existentialist philosophy is Søren Kierkegaard, a Danish philosopher from the 19th century. Kierkegaard's approach to authenticity centers around the concept of the leap of faith. He believed that to live authentically, one must take a leap of faith beyond rationality and societal norms, embracing a deeply personal commitment to one's true self and beliefs. Kierkegaard saw life as a series of choices that define who we are. He argued that most people live in a state of inauthenticity because they follow the crowd and adhere to societal conventions without questioning them. Authenticity for Kierkegaard involves making conscious and deliberate choices that reflect our individual beliefs and values, even if these choices are difficult or irrational. One of Kierkegaard's famous examples is the story of Abraham from the Bible, who was willing to sacrifice his son Isaac because he believed it was God's will. This act represents a leap of faith, where Abraham trusted his inner conviction over rationality and societal norms. Kierkegaard used this story to illustrate the kind of personal commitment and courage required for authentic living. Friedrich Nietzsche, another influential philosopher, introduced the concept of the Übermensch, or the overman. I think I've talked about this. I talked about this in the Friedrich Nietzsche episode, which you can find from maybe a few months back now. Time has gone quickly this year. Nietzsche believed that authenticity involves transcending conventional morality and societal norms to create one's own values and purpose. The Übermensch is an individual who has the strength and creativity to forge their own path and live according to their true nature. Nietzsche's philosophy challenges us to question the values and beliefs imposed on us by society. He argued that to be authentic, we must go beyond simply accepting these values and instead create our own. This involves a process of self-overcoming, where we confront and transcend our limitations and fears to become our true selves. For Nietzsche, authenticity is not about conforming to an external standard of goodness or virtue. Instead, it is about embracing our individuality and living in a way that is true to our unique potential. This requires a willingness to question and challenge the status quo and to take risks in pursuit of our own vision of a meaningful life. From Sartre's emphasis on freedom and responsibility to Kierkegaard's leap of faith and Nietzsche's call to transcend conventional values, these ideas challenge us to confront our true selves and live in accordance with our deepest values and belief. They provide a strong foundation, but it's up to each of us to apply these principles in our own lives. And we're going to talk about that in our next section on Insights from Psychology. Now then, it is time to turn our attention to the psychological insights into authenticity. How does modern psychology help us understand what it means to live an authentic life? Let's dive in. Psychology, with its focus on understanding human behavior and mental processes, offers valuable perspectives on authenticity. Several key theories and concepts from psychology can shed some light on how we can achieve and maintain authenticity in our lives. Today, we are going to explore three major areas: self-determination theory, Carl Rogers' humanistic approach, and the role of mindfulness in creating authenticity. I'm going to start with self-determination theory, which is often acronymized, whatever that word is, as SDT, not STD. We've got to be really careful with this. I'm sure I'll slip an STD in there somewhere. Now, SDT was developed by the psychologists, and I hope I pronounce these names correctly, Edward Deci and Richard Ryan. SDT is I can't say this in a straight face. I'm not gonna use the acronym because I'm just gonna. Gonorrhea is a comprehensive framework. No, self-determination theory is a comprehensive framework for understanding human motivation and personality. According to this theory, authentic living is closely tied to the fulfillment of three basic psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Now, autonomy refers to the need to feel in control of our own actions and decisions. When we act out of our own volition rather than due to external pressures or obligations, we experience a sense of autonomy. This is crucial for authenticity because it allows us to make choices that are in line with our true selves. Competence, of course, involves feeling effective and capable in our interactions with the world. When we engage in activities that utilize our skills and challenge us to grow, we feel a sense of competence. This contributes to authenticity by enabling us to express our true abilities and potential. We feel empowered. We feel capable. It's a nice feeling. And then we have relatedness. And this, of course, is the need to feel connected to others, to love and to be loved. Authenticity in relationships means being able to share our true selves with others and feeling accepted and understood. This, of course, creates more meaningful connections, which are essential for our tribal, social, creature well-being needs that we are. According to SDT, when these three needs are met, we are more likely to experience intrinsic motivation. Now, that is, engaging in activities because they are inherently rewarding and aligned with our values. This intrinsic motivation is a key component of authentic living. On the other hand, of course, when these needs are thwarted, we may experience extrinsic motivation. So intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation. And extrinsic is where our actions are driven by external rewards or pressures, which leads to inauthenticity. So intrinsic is authentic, extrinsic is inauthentic because it's external. Carl Rogers then, and I had to remember it's Carl Rogers, not Carl Weathers. We're not going to be finding Rocky. Carl Rogers, who was a big-time humanistic psychologist, he approached psychology with a very strong emphasis on the individual subjective experience and the importance of self-actualization. Which this reminds me, I need to do an episode on Maslow, on Abraham Maslow, on his theory of human motivation. There is a triangle you will have seen, which has self-actualization at the top and survival at the bottom. And then there's little tiers that we sort of go up through as the needs are met. And I might do an episode. I might do it next week. We might have a Maslow special next week because he's intrinsically important to a lot of the things that I talk about, be that subtext or what have you. So maybe we'll talk Maslow. I can't believe I haven't talked Maslow. It's been 72 episodes and Maslow hasn't had a deep dive. Yeah, that needs to happen. Okay, back to Carl Rogers. So Carl Rogers then, he introduced the concept of the fully functioning person, which describes individuals who are living in a way which are congruent with their true selves. Now, according to Rogers, there are several characteristics of a fully functioning person, and we're just going to run through them briefly to give us an idea. So first we have openness to experience. So fully functioning individuals are open to their feelings and experiences, both positive and negative. They do not deny or distort their emotions, but rather accept them as part of their authentic selves. Then we have existential living. So these individuals live in the present moment, fully experiencing life as it unfolds. They do not dwell excessively on the past or worry unduly about the future, allowing them to respond authentically to each moment. And here's another word I'm going to get terribly wrong: organismic trust. That was close. Fully functioning individuals trust their own judgment and intuition. They rely on their internal cues and feelings to guide their decisions rather than adhering strictly to external rules or expectations. We have experiential freedom. So it's recognizing that their freedom to make choices and take responsibility for our actions is paramount. They understand that they are the authors of their own lives, which is a core aspect, as we mentioned, of authenticity. And then lastly, we have creativity and adaptability. Fully functioning persons are creative and able to adapt to new situations. They are not rigidly fixed in their ways, but are open to change and growth, which allows for authentic self-expression. So those 5 things: openness to experience, existential living, organismic trust, experiential freedom, creativity and adaptability. Okay? I'm impressed I said organismic twice and didn't turn it into orgasm. Right, so Rogers believe that for individuals to achieve this state, they need an environment that provides unconditional positive regard, empathy, and congruence. I'm slapping the mic stand as I gesticulate heavily. Unconditional positive regard, which I've talked about previously, involves accepting and valuing a person without condition or judgment. Empathy, of course, involves understanding and sharing the feelings of another, and congruence involves being genuine and transparent. When these conditions are present, individuals feel safe to explore and express their true selves. So that's his idea of, that's a very quick overview of humanistic psychology, or person-centric psychotherapy, essentially. Fully functioning person. I don't even think I call myself a fully functioning person. I'm a mostly functioning person. I don't think I have I met a fully functioning person. It's very aloof, isn't it? These ideas, when we think about them, meeting those 5 points that we talked about, and then being present. They're never present constantly. There's no way. You show me a person who consistently self-actualizes 100% of the time, and I'll show you the face of Buddha. It doesn't happen in the way. It's wonderful on paper, but human experience tells us something very different. Maybe, what are your thoughts on the fully functioning person? Are you a fully functioning person? If you are, I'd like to interview you. Give me a message on the comments, or the what have you, wherever you write comments, where you listen to this thing, this manifestation of my mind. Drop me a comment. I like to chat with you. But please leave your thoughts on fully functioning people and what you think about that idea. So we're going to move on, lastly, in this section, to mindfulness and how mindfulness can help us be more authentic. So mindfulness is the practice of paying attention. And I love it. There's a great book. I probably talked about this before. There's a wonderful book by Aldous Huxley called The Island. Is it The Island? I'm going to get told off for this now. I'm sure it's The Island. And there's a guy. It's like the antithesis of Brave New World. And this guy crash lands on a beach. Shipwrecked on a beach. He just falls into a beach, and he's walking around in this lovely, lush, beautiful paradise. And there are these birds, and the birds and trees. They don't sing like birds. They go, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. And I love that. That's like my mantra sometimes. Just pay attention. Love it. So getting back to mindfulness, where we have to pay attention, being present with the moment. So being present, being mindful. How does that make us more authentic? It's a good question, isn't it? How does being mindful make us more authentic? Couple of things that I think come into play here. Now, firstly, there's going to be self-awareness. Now, mindfulness makes us more aware of our thoughts and our feelings and what's happening in our body. If any of you have meditated before, I'm sure you'll know what I mean. Now, when we increase our self-awareness, it allows us to recognize when we are acting in ways that are not true to ourselves. And that empowers us to make conscious choices to change our behaviors so that they align more with our authentic selves, more in line with our values. Now, mindfulness also encourages us to accept our experiences as they are without trying to change or avoid them. And acceptance, of course, is important, isn't it? We have to accept who we are. We have to accept the aspects of ourselves because that's authentic. That's us. There's no point trying to pretend that we're something that we're not. I think also mindfulness can help to reduce that whole thing of social comparison. So we have that horrible tendency to compare ourselves to others, don't we? But when we get more into mindfulness meditation, we can become less focused on the external because we're more easily tuned into our own values and desires. We become more aware of the internal space. So the volume gets turned down on all that external shit. In my experience, you may have a different experience. And if you do, please let me know. But that's what I think, we've got to, turn inwards a little bit, because that's where the truth lies inside inside yourselves. That's, mindful. I just want to bring mindfulness in because I always try, meditation. It's my mission to make everybody meditate. That's my goal. All people in the world shall meditate. Well, you give it a go. I think it's massively useful. I think it can be hugely helpful for all sorts of things like, emotional regulation and just calming the fuck down. It's helpful with that stuff. I do a bit of meditation. Maybe I can do a meditation special if you'd like that. Also, you can let me know. And I'll do a special maybe I'll even do a meditation. We'll have a meditation episode. Or maybe that should be a separate podcast. I don't want to drown you all in that stuff. So that's it. That's what I've got to say around psychology. And the thing about psychology is, so we've done philosophy. We've talked about cerebral thing that's going on. Psychology is more of the framework for exploring how we can actually apply some of those ideas that philosophy talks to us about, which is what makes psychology so interesting. It's not just about two people sitting in opposing chairs and one discussing their feelings and another just nodding and asking how that makes you feel. There are uses in psychology, things that we can actually put to use in the real world. Okay, so it's time to turn our attention to the wisdom of theology. In most religions, there is somewhat of a quest for a true and authentic self. It becomes a theme across many religions. And I want to get into a bit about how different theologies understand and guide us towards authentic living. And you will see why. When I get to the last segment, you will see why I have covered philosophy, psychology, and theology in this. I think that there is a point to it. But let's have a look at some examples that religions give us around this idea of authenticity. I'm going to begin with Christianity. Now, at the heart of Christian theology is this concept of imago Dei, which means the image of God. Now, according to the Bible, humans are created in the image and likeness of God, and you can find this in Genesis 1:27. This theological concept implies that each person has inherent worth and dignity, and that our true selves reflect the divine nature. In Christian thought, living authentically means recognizing and embracing this divine image within us. It involves aligning our lives with the values and teachings of Christ, who is considered the perfect example of authentic living. Jesus' life, characterized by compassion, humility, and unwavering commitment to truth, serves as a model for Christians striving to live authentically. Additionally, the concept of vocation or calling is central to Christian authenticity. Christians believe that God has a unique purpose for each individual, and discovering and fulfilling this calling is a key aspect of living authentically. The calling isn't just about career choices. We're talking about all aspects of life, relationships, service, personal development, all of that stuff. Jesus didn't just want you to be an accountant. There's more to it than that. Now then, Buddhism and the concept of anatta. So moving eastwards on Singapore Airlines, Buddhism offers a different but equally profound perspective on authenticity. Now, central to the Buddhist teachings on this is the concept of anatta, or non-self. Now, that's going to be really fucking contradictory because I'm talking about authenticity and I've just said non-self, but bear with me. So unlike many Western traditions that emphasize a fixed inherent self, Buddhism teaches that the self is not permanent. It's not this unchanging entity. It's a dynamic and ever-changing process. And this idea is counterintuitive, but it has profound implications on authenticity. So authentic living within Buddhism involves recognizing the impermanent and interconnected nature of existence. It means letting go of rigid attachments to a fixed identity and embracing the fluid, interdependent nature of our true selves. Meditation and mindfulness practices in Buddhism are tools to cultivate this understanding. By observing our thoughts, emotions, and sensations without attachment, we can see through the illusion of a permanent self and experience a more authentic way of being. This perspective encourages a flexible, compassionate, and present-centered approach to life. In Hinduism, the concept of Atman, or the true self, is central to understanding authenticity. Atman refers to the innermost essence of an individual, which is considered identical with Brahman, the ultimate reality or world soul. The journey towards authenticity in Hinduism is often described as a process of self-realization, where one comes to understand and experience the unity of Atman and Brahman. The realization is achieved through various paths, including bhakti, jnana, and karma. Each path provides a different approach to discovering one's true self and living in harmony with the divine. Authenticity in this context involves transcending the ego and recognizing the divine nature within. The Bhagavad Gita, a key text in Hindu philosophy, emphasizes the importance of acting in accordance with one's dharma or duty without attachment to the results. This detachment is seen as essential for realizing the true self and living authentically. By performing one's duties with a sense of devotion and selflessness, individuals can align their actions with their true nature and the cosmic order. Islam offers another unique perspective on authenticity through the concept of fitra. Fitra refers to the innate nature or disposition with which God has created every human being. According to Islamic teaching, every person is born with an inherent goodness and a natural inclination towards worshipping God and living a moral life. Authenticity in Islam involves returning to this original pure state of fitra. It means living in accordance with the divine will and following the teachings of the Quran and the Hadith. The 5 pillars of Islam, faith, prayer, charity, fasting, and pilgrimage, provide a framework for cultivating the authentic way of life. Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam, emphasizes the inner journey towards authenticity. Sufis seek to purify the heart and achieve a direct personal experience of God. This path involves meditation and spiritual discipline, and through these practices, Sufis aim to transcend the ego and realize their true divine nature. In Judaism, the concept of Zelem Elohim, or the image of God, is similar to the Christian concept of Imago Dei. It signifies that every human being is created in the divine image and possesses inherent worth and dignity. Authentic living in Judaism involves recognizing and honoring this divine image within ourselves and others. The Torah and the Talmud provide ethical guidelines and commandments that help individuals align their lives with God's will. By observing these commandments and engaging in acts of kindness, justice, and charity, Jews strive to live authentically and fulfill their covenant with God. Moreover, the concept of teshuvah or repentance is central to Jewish authenticity. Teshuvah involves returning to one's true self and to God, especially after straying from the path of righteousness. It is a process of self-examination, remorse, and making amends, which ultimately leads to spiritual renewal and authenticity. Now, I wanted to talk about theology because I think theology reminds us that authenticity is not just a psychological or philosophical endeavor, but it is a spiritual journey. I think it's important to recognize that there is a spiritual aspect to the human experience, and I think it's important to honor that within ourselves and others, and to align our lives with certain higher principles, because I feel it gives us a greater sense of purpose and connection. Now we are in the final segment of today's episode, and it is time to bring together the ideas and the insights that we've garnered from philosophy, psychology, and theology. Each of these disciplines offers unique perspectives on authenticity, and by integrating them, we can gain a more holistic understanding of what it means to live truly and authentically. Let's start by revisiting some of the key ideas that we've explored so far, because it's been a bit of a slog in this episode. It's been a long one, and I'm hoping it hasn't been too dry. From philosophy, we have learned about the existentialist emphasis on freedom, responsibility, and the courage to face our true selves. Psychology has provided us with frameworks like self-determination theory and the humanistic approach of Carl Rogers, highlighting the importance of self-awareness, congruence, and fulfilling our intrinsic needs. Theology, meanwhile, has offered spiritual dimensions of authenticity, drawing on concepts such as the divine image in Christianity, the true self in Hinduism, and the innate nature in Islam. One of the most striking aspects of our exploration is the common themes that emerge across the divide. Despite their different approaches, philosophy, psychology, and theology all converge on several key values, and we're going to just touch on what those key values and ideas are. Firstly, we have self-awareness and self-knowledge. So across all disciplines, the journey to authenticity begins with self-awareness. Whether it's through philosophical reflection, psychological introspection, or spiritual practices, understanding who we truly are is the foundation of authentic living. This involves recognizing our thoughts, emotions, values, and beliefs. Then we have alignment with true values. Authenticity requires that our actions, decisions, and behaviors align with our deepest values and beliefs. Philosophy emphasizes the importance of living according to our chosen values. Psychology underscores the need for congruence between our self-concept and actions. And theology often speaks of aligning with divine principles or our higher purpose. Then we have freedom and responsibility. Existentialist philosophy, particularly through Sartre's lens, highlights the freedom we have to shape our lives and the responsibility that comes with it. Similarly, psychology encourages us to take responsibility for our choices and actions, promoting a sense of agency. Theological perspectives also often emphasize the moral responsibility we have to live in accordance with our true nature or divine will. Then we have embracing vulnerability and impermanence. Authenticity is not about being perfect, but about embracing our vulnerability and the transient nature of life. Existentialists like Kierkegaard and Nietzsche speak to the importance of facing life's uncertainties and embracing our imperfections. Psychology, through mindfulness, teaches us to accept our present experiences without judgment. Buddhism's concept of anatta encourages us to see the fluidity and interconnectedness of our existence. And then we have, finally, connection and relatedness. So authenticity is deeply relational. Psychology's self-determination theory highlights the importance of relatedness, while theology emphasizes love, compassion, and community as central to authentic living. Authenticity is not achieved in isolation, but through genuine connections with others. Let's delve a bit deeper into how these insights from philosophy, psychology, and theology can be integrated into a cohesive understanding of authenticity. So philosophy provides the foundational framework for understanding authenticity by challenging us to think deeply about our existence, freedom, and values. It asks us to confront our true selves and make deliberate choices that reflect our authentic being. The existentialist focus on personal responsibility and the creation of meaning is a powerful starting point for exploring authenticity. It sets the stage for a life that is self-authored and meaningful, encouraging us to question societal norms and find our own path. Psychology builds on this foundation by offering mechanisms and tools to achieve authenticity. Self-determination theory gives us a clear understanding of the basic psychological needs that must be met for authentic living. Carl Rogers' humanistic approach emphasizes the importance of self-awareness and congruence, providing practical insights into how we can align our actions with our true selves. Mindfulness practices help us stay present and attuned to our authentic experiences, reducing the noise of external expectations. Theology enriches this framework by adding a spiritual dimension. It provides a sense of purpose and connection that transcends individual existence. Concepts like Imago Dei, Atman, and Fitra remind us of our inherent worth and the divine aspect of our true selves. These theological perspectives encourage us to live in a way that honors the divine nature, aligning our lives with higher principles and a sense of greater purpose. By integrating these perspectives, we can develop a more comprehensive understanding of authenticity that addresses the intellectual, emotional, and spiritual dimensions of our being. Philosophy challenges us to define our values and make conscious choices. Psychology offers tools and insights to help us understand and align with our true selves. Theology provides a sense of higher purpose and interconnectedness, encouraging us to see authenticity as part of a larger spiritual journey. This holistic approach recognizes that authenticity is not a static state, but an ongoing process of growth, self-discovery, and alignment. It involves continually questioning and refining our understanding of who we are and how we want to live. Authenticity is a multifaceted and dynamic concept that encompasses our intellectual, emotional, and spiritual lives. By drawing on the wisdom of philosophy, psychology, and theology, we can cultivate a deeper and more nuanced understanding of what it means to live truly and authentically. Remember, this journey towards authenticity is deeply personal and unique to each individual. It requires courage, self-awareness, and the willingness to embrace our vulnerabilities and imperfections. As we continue on this path, let us remain open to the insights and guidance offered by these diverse disciplines, allowing them to illuminate our way and enrich our lives. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I have to say on the subject of the journey to authentic self-expression. We began our journey by defining authenticity and recognizing its importance in our lives. Authenticity at its core is about being true to oneself, aligning our actions, thoughts, and words with our deepest values and beliefs. It's about living a life that feels genuine and true from the inside out. We ventured into the realm of philosophy, where existentialist thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Søren Kierkegaard challenged us to confront our freedom and take responsibility for our choices. We learned about the concept of bad faith, where self-deception prevents us from living authentically, and the leap of faith, which encourages us to embrace uncertainty and make choices that reflect our true selves. From there, we delved into psychology, where self-determination theory highlighted the importance of autonomy, competence, and relatedness in achieving authentic living. Carl Rogers' humanistic approach emphasized the characteristics of the fully functioning person: openness to experience, existential living, organismic trust, experiential freedom, and creativity. Mindfulness, a powerful psychological tool, helps us stay present and attuned to our true selves, creating self-awareness and acceptance. Our exploration then took us to the spiritual dimension through the theological perspectives. Christianity's concept of imago Dei reminds us of our divine nature and the importance of living in accordance with God's will. Buddhism's notion of anatta teaches us about the fluidity of the self and the importance of embracing impermanence. Hinduism's idea of Atman calls us to realize our true self, which is identical with the ultimate reality, Brahman. In Islam, the concept of fitra highlights our innate goodness and natural inclination towards living a moral life. Judaism's Zelem Elohim and the practice of teshuvah guide us to honor the divine image within and return to our true selves through repentance and renewal. Throughout our journey, several common themes emerged across these different perspectives. Self-awareness and self-knowledge are foundational to authenticity, as is the alignment of our actions with our values. Embracing freedom and responsibility, recognizing our vulnerabilities, and creating genuine connections with others are all crucial elements of living authentically. Integrating these insights, we see that authenticity is a holistic and dynamic process. Philosophy provides the intellectual framework, psychology offers practical mechanisms, and theology infuses a sense of higher purpose and interconnectedness. Together, they form a comprehensive approach to understanding and achieving authenticity. Living authentically is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing journey of self-discovery and growth. It requires continuous reflection, courage, and a willingness to embrace both our strengths and our imperfections. It's about making conscious choices that reflect our true selves, even in the face of societal pressures and external expectations. As we wrap up this episode, I encourage you to reflect on your own journey towards authenticity. Consider the insights that we've discussed and how they might apply to your life. Remember that authenticity is about being true to yourself, honoring your values, and living in a way that feels genuinely right for you. As always, I would like to thank each and every one of you for joining me today on this exploration of authenticity. I hope that you found the conversation. Is it a conversation or is it just a diatribe? This discussion useful, inspiring in some way, that you've got something out of it that you can take away and apply to your lives outside of these four walls. And if anything in this episode has resonated with you in any way, then I would love to hear from you. You can share your stories via Substack at theobservingeye.com or on social media. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@theobservingeye. And on TikTok and Instagram with the handle @theobservingeye as well. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.
You've been listening to The Observing Eye. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope it's been useful. And if you're interested in any more of my writing or work around psychology, philosophy, and general day-to-day living, please go and take a look at my Substack, which is theobservingeye.com. And that's I as in the letter, not I as in the gelatinous organ through which you see. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.